Hey everybody, welcome back to What Andy Does. Today we're going to be doing something kind of different. I'm going to be making a pork dish called a roulade. It's kind of like the Swiss cake roll of the meat world. I've got a few things that's going to be going inside of it. There's going to be some seasonings going on the outside of it. To begin with today, we're going to be working on some mushrooms. These are shiitakes. And then we've got some baby bellas that we're going to be processing down. These are going to need to be small because they're going almost as a paste on the inside. So we will take these mushrooms and some onions, dice those up fairly fine, and cook them off in the electric skillet, and then carry on from there. Be back in just a few. All right, we are back. I had to prep some of the mushrooms, get them rinsed off. Adding water, it's not really that big of a deal to mushrooms, so if you feel like it, you can wash them off. You don't want to soak them overnight or anything like that, but just rinsing them off under the faucet is not going to be a problem. You can brush them off and make little brushes that you can use to brush the dirt off. So we're going to get to chopping these up here in a second and making them as small as possible. Everybody always asks me why Mario hang around with the little mushroom dude, and I always say just because he was a fun guy to hang out with. All right, here we are at mushroom dicing time. All I did was cut part of the stem off because it is a little woody when it gets longer. It's been on there for a while. So it's not really any kind of special thing. You just chop these up into slices, or I guess slice these up into slices. And then run your knife through them. Just be careful and tuck your fingers. You're not trying to go for anything special. You just want them small enough to where they're going to cook down. All right, I'm going to finish these up and get to some onions. I know this looks like a stupid amount of onions, and I'll put a picture up right here of the the amount of mushrooms that I have. And I'm telling you guys, I know it looks like a crazy amount. I've got about a 3 or 4 pound pork loin that this is all going to go on the inside of and be wrapped up in. These 4 onions and those about 2 pounds of mushrooms, maybe 2.5 pounds, is going to cook away to almost absolutely nothing. So I'll show you when we get to the end of it and show you what it looks like compared to the 4 onions you see here and the big pan full of mushrooms. So give me just a second. I will show you just a little tip and trick on dicing onions, and then we'll carry on. Be right back. Okay, wanted to talk real quick about cutting onions. So this is an uncut onion. This is a cut onion. You want to look for this. That is the root end. That's going to hold everything together while you're cutting it. So especially if you're doing a dice, don't cut that until you are finished chopping. And it will hold all the layers together and it'll be a lot easier to cut. All right, so give me just a second. Wipe these bits away. So now we have our onion, root end still intact, top end cut off. So a lot of people you will see will cut horizontal lines this way, and then vertical lines this way, and then get to chopping. Honestly, these horizontal cuts are not needed because as you cut through this, the individual layers of the onion will separate on themselves. So you really just need to do the vertical cuts. Then, since we are doing this more for flavor than for texture, we can go fairly small, and this will help them cook faster. And that's it. See how they'll break up into individual smaller pieces. I mean, it's not incredibly uniform, but we're not going for something like that. So, no big deal. Welcome back. We are at the electric skillet once again. That humming noise that you might hear is actually the electric current flowing through the heating element that runs through the bottom of the skillet. So we'll be putting the mushrooms here in just a second. Going to be salting those down and drawing some of the moisture off, cooking those out, and then later on we'll be throwing the onions in. This is going to take a while as we're just drawing moisture. Just drawing moisture. We don't necessarily have to worry about getting any color or browning. We're just going to heat these through and drive off some of the moisture, some of that water. That way we can get this down to a thick paste to put on the inside of our pork. And as always, never trust anybody with your equipment that doesn't deserve it. So let the onions begin. So guys, if you'll remember, this entire skillet was filled basically twice, and so that is the amount that is left. It's about a quarter the size that it was, so that's why I said we were going to need all those mushrooms and all those onions. Now I probably won't need all of this. It's got a little bit longer to cook. It takes a while to get everything reduced down using an electric skillet. It's not the most efficient thing in the world, but it helps from keeping everything so nasty in the kitchen, because I can just take this whole thing and, throw it in the sink. Anyway, probably going to check back with you later. We'll get this stuff finished cooking, cooled down in the refrigerator, and I'll be cooking the pork more than likely tomorrow or the next day. Hey guys, as you see, it's a brand new day. I got a new shirt on. So we're going to be prepping the pork loin for making the roulade. So we've got to make sure we get any extra little bits that are hanging off, trimmed off, any excess fat, silver skin, things like that. I'll go through a couple of parts of that prep with you, just to show you kind of how I do it. I got a few other tips and tricks I'm going to pass along, so maybe that'll help you out in the future. Hang on, we'll be right back. So one of the interesting things that I've learned off of our good friend Alton Brown, his show Good Eats, is a couple of damp paper towels underneath your cutting board. Make it really sturdy. Non-slip, not necessarily sturdy. So we've got this big hunk of meat. It's about 3 3/4 pounds. It looks pretty good, but there's a few things like this membrane here. This is the silver skin. We're probably going to lose most of this fat cap. Unfortunately, I wish I could keep it, but there is a lot of silver skin underneath it. So this is going to have to go, because that is just not chewable, especially when it gets cooked. There's a few other things we need to trim up. Other than that, we're good to go. So I'm not sure if you've ever trimmed silver skin before, but it's a lot like taking the skin off of a fish. You have to get underneath the end, being careful to watch your fingers. So now you got to go back in the other direction. Once you get all of it, you want to angle your knife. Once you get that tag end, you want to angle your knife in such a way where you are cutting up, and I've done this at a wrong angle. So now that you can't see, you angle the knife up so you can get just the silver skin and not the meat. So we're running into a lot bigger area underneath that fat cap of silver skin. So as you can see, I was able to take off just the silver skin, no meat. So I'm going to continue with that because there's a lot here, and I'll check back with you as soon as I'm done with that. So I wound up having a lot more silver skin. So I lost a little bit of stuff I wanted to keep on it, but I think I've got it to a place where I think I can work with it. So now comes the fun part of a roulade. If you know what a Swiss cake roll looks like, I'm going to make a longitudinal cut this way. I think that's longitudinal. And so we're going to basically split this into a third. We want to cut about a third of the way down, cut it across until you are almost all the way through, open it up like a book, and then cut back the other direction. So you wind up with a uniform thickness on all thirds of it, because you're going to cut a third off the top, then a third out of the middle, and that's going to fold out like a book. Anyway, we're going to proceed. You want to use this kind of knife if you don't have, I don't have a boning knife, or I would be using that. Something thin and long, a good slicer. You're going to need that so it's more nimble. You could use a bigger knife if you're better at it, but I'm not the best knife skill guy. So this is what we're going to attempt to do. Let's see if we can get this on camera. And don't be afraid to make multiple cuts. You open it up so you can see where you're going. The inside does not have to be pretty. Because the goal is to be able to get something that will lay pretty much flat, right? So that's our first section done. So now, as you can see, the end of this is thinner on this side, thicker on this side. Now I want to make a cut that's going to trim this width, this thickness down to where it's more like this thickness. And again, it's the inside. It does not have to be pretty. You are going to be the only one looking at it. And you'll be surprised how easily this rolls back up into something that looks like it used to. I'm just rambling at this point. All right, it's not perfect, but not much in life ever is. So there is our completed opening up to start our roulade. Next, I'm going to grab the mushrooms and onions that we cooked the other day and get those laid out on here and get that going. Then we're going to talk about seasonings and where we're going to go with that. Then we'll get back to the exciting world of trussing this up. Be right back. All right, guys, one of the things I'd recommend is I see a lot of people doing stuff that kind of irritates me on YouTube and internet, if you can imagine that. So you don't want to be handling raw meat and your spice containers just back and forth, back and forth. So grab just a dish and pour out approximately how much you think you're going to use. It's okay if you have to go back and forth, but just make sure you're cleaning up, because sanitation is one of the most important things while you're cooking. So just grab a dish, pour some out in it, and just realize that anything you pour out and put your hands back in does not go back in the dish. It just gets tossed. It's kind of like the angel's share when it comes to alcohol. So we're going to get to seasoning, and then we'll be right back. All right, so we're back with our seasoning in our container. So one of the things that I've noticed with most people are very afraid to season things. And I don't blame them, because if you get too much seasoning on stuff, it is just not good. So sometimes if you're not too experienced or you're worried about things, Cook something. Remember how much seasoning you put on it. And then cook it again and put a little more and see if it tastes better. It's all about trial and error, because you always want stuff to have as much flavor as you want it to have, maybe not more than you want it to have. So, one thing that I just realized, I have run out of seasoning, but I need more. One of the things that you always want to try to do is keep a hand clean. That way, if I need more seasoning, I can just grab it and not have to worry about the dirty hand. And you can go from there. So try to keep a clean hand if you can. That way, if something comes up, you got an option. So we're going to season this liberally. Because remember, this is about 3 3/4 pounds of pork. So there's a lot to season. Plus I've got the mushrooms and onions that we made yesterday. So some of this seasoning is going to get in with them. So you want to just pat this in. Make sure there's not one area that's got more than another. Try to make it as uniform as possible. All right. So we have got our inside seasoned up. Next, we're going to put our mushroom and onion mixture on. And then, I don't know if I've told you yet or not, but there's maybe a little surprise. Be right back. All right, we got that settled. So now we're going to bring in and introduce our mushroom and onion mixture to the party. Just want to smear that on like it was cream cheese on a bagel, or whatever topping you like for your bagels. Cream cheese and onions is good for me. I like that. Not so much, the lox. That is just not for me. I accidentally tried some out in Las Vegas one time. Very, very jarring experience. So when I get this coated, I will be bringing you in and showing you kind of what the coverage looks like. I'm going to have more of the mushroom and onion mixture than I need. That's okay. You can always use it in some other dish, some other way. Be good basically as an ingredient on sandwiches, or if you got another roulade that you're getting ready to do. Or maybe you're stuffing a turkey, or stuffing another kind of bird, or whatever it is. It's a good thing to know how to do. Good thing to have. So you'll have your two edges that are going to have to go back together. So you want to keep those kind of free of the stuffing. You don't have to. It just keeps things a little neater in the rolling process if you're trying to be neat. But you don't have to be. It's the beauty about cooking in your own kitchen. You do whatever you want to do, as long as you're clean and not afraid to clean it up. If you got somebody else to clean it up, really, you can do whatever you want to do. All right, just a little more up here. All right. And if anytime anybody wants any recipes, I don't really work off recipes. It's mostly just stuff in my head. I would be more than happy to share those. Especially if you got any questions, anything like that, I would love to share those in the comments, or just, personal messages or whatever. I'm going to zoom you in on this here in a second and show you what it looks like, talk about coverage, and then we're going to get to the kind of, I don't know what to call it, secret ingredients. Just something I don't normally put inside of a roulade, just me. All right. Let me zoom you in. Now, we have got some Boar's Head 3-pepper Colby Jack. that is going to be going in the mix. I'll just lay that down. I'm not doing much inside because I don't want the cheese to be the main thing. I just want it to be there to add a little bit of creaminess, give us back some of that fat we had to cut off. A little bit of heat because the three pepper blend has got a good amount of heat. So we're going to let this set for a few minutes just to let everything kind of have fun and marry together. But also I want the cheese to come up kind of close to room temperature. That's way it's easier to roll and it doesn't break because it's been in the refrigerator. So once again, we'll be right back. Okay, here we are. So first off, I want to apologize for not being able to give you a bird's eye view. I don't really have a cameraman or woman or whoever or the equipment to actually do this. So right now my phone is propped up on a paper towel holder. So first thing we're going to do is start the rolling process. Cheese is not going to want to roll. You can see right there I cut through a little too much, but it's not going to matter. It's going to be on the inside. Remember, it doesn't have to be pretty on the inside. Just like me. So just keep rolling, and it will figure out where to go. All right, so that rolled up fairly nicely. I think we are good to go. So again, I'm gonna let this rest for a few minutes, let it kind of settle into who it wants to be at this point. And then we'll get to trussing. All right, so now we have got our cotton twine. We're getting ready to truss this up. But as one of my favorite presidents said, truss but verify. So the way we're going to start this is with a simple overhand knot. We're going to do one more loop. So 1 time under, 2 times under. And that will pretty much hold itself as it is, but we want to secure it with one more just to make sure, because cotton twine is cheap. So instead of snipping, and moving, what we're going to do is pass this over. Now I'm not going to be able to show you this very well, unfortunately. So basically we're going to make a running knot. Take this, make a loop, roll it over, tuck it under, and work it down. What that'll allow you to do is tighten up on this without having to make another knot. So again, loop, twist it over and forward, and just pass it along. And we can come back and tighten all of this up because we've only tied one real knot in the front. As you can see how this is opening it up, we can come back and put another one in the front, tighten that up some more. And the reason you truss things like this is not necessarily to keep them together. That's not a bad not a bad side effect. But one of the things you want to do is make this even size all the way down from one end to the other, so it cooks more evenly, or as much as evenly as you can, because you want all of it to get done at the same time. I will save you all the agony of watching me do this. I will cut the video and see you in a few. All right, so now we've got this top side done. We want to roll this over. See how we've done so far. Yeah, not too bad. We've got a few things that have decided to hang out. So now we want to truss this up along this side. So now is when we will need to trim. You want to make sure you got enough to go from one side to the other and then back around. So we want to cut off some excess and then be done with our twine. Wow. So as you do this, you will want to go over and under each of these, making a loop. So you want to pull one round up, tuck this under, and then go back forward. You can skip the next one, pull it up, tuck it under, go around it, up and over. These up here were a little bit farther spread out, so I will do them all. And if you wind up at the end thinking, hey, I probably needed more there, you can always tie more on. And it's better to make that decision now than it fall apart or whatever later. All right, so we're going to roll this back over, come back around the front. And tuck underneath our very first one. Eventually. And make just a simple knot. Remember, this part doesn't have to be beautiful. It is just to hold everything together. All right, so I've made a pretty good mess. I'm probably going to come back and cinch this up so it's not quite as open. And then I'll give you a picture and talk a little bit about the process of trussing with a top-down video. That way you can see more of what I did. All right, so here we are, all trussed up. Got a little errant piece of cheese I got to get off there. It'll burn. So anyway, I just wanted to show you kind of the process of going through this. And I'll zoom in so you can see what I was talking about with that kind of running knot where it goes underneath and then through. There's a lot better videos online of that. I got to get that off. It's bugging me. So we've got to go back, probably put a little bit of salt and pepper on the outside. There's plenty of salt and pepper and seasoning on the inside. And then we will get the oven preheated, get it in the oven. I'm going to be going low on this and going to cook it for a while to make sure it does well. And I don't want it to get too tough, so I want to go slow. Probably do 300 for maybe 2 hours. It just depends. I'll have a thermal probe that we can check in on it and see how things are going. All right. So please, if you have any questions about this, put them in the comments, send me a message, whatever, and I'll make sure and try to answer those as best I can. So guys, just pulled it out of the oven a few minutes ago. Let it rest for about 10, just to let all the juices redistribute, because as it cooks, it constricts and all that water gets moved around. So the resting is one of the most important parts of cooking as far as meat goes. So we're going to find out together what this looks like on the inside. hopefully it's done. I checked the internal temp, so it should be good. Now, for those of you who are afraid of pork, I cooked this probably a little less done for you, but there hasn't been a case of trichinosis in the United States in a very long time, so it's not something we really have to worry about anymore. But if you do worry about it, you can take your food to whatever temperature that you feel like you need to take it to. But for me and mine, I normally run pork at about 145, 150, which is about 10 degrees, 15 degrees shy of what the government tells you to. So, but anyway, let's see what we look like. It's a good sliceable consistency. And there we have it. All right, so I've got a salad I'm going to make. Slice a couple of these off, plate it up, and we'll see how it tastes. Hey everybody, I wanted to come out here and end this before the weather moved in. I think we're going to get some rain. Actually had a little bit of rain already. Thanks again for tuning in. The meal was great. Pork was cooked perfectly. Salad went great with it. Those onions were fantastic. Cooking in that pork juice the whole time. So again, thanks for tuning in to What Andy Does. Any comments, please, put those below. Comment and share, like it, help me get some more subscribers. Share it out to your friends on Facebook, wherever. Please, if you got any questions about anything I did today, just shoot me a message, leave a comment. Comment would be better. Appreciate it again, guys, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on What Andy Does.